So Call to Arms Panzer Elite has been out for some time now, and previously I've made a video on my first impressions where I discuss my opinions and thoughts and where it can be improved, but after playing it for some time now, I had a lot more to think about. And personally for me, I think Panzer Elite has kind of missed an opportunity, and I want to discuss and also revisit my experience and where it can be improved and provide some updates. If you don't know, I'm Fan Fantasy and I cover tactical and immersive games, and today I want to talk about Call to Arms Panzer Elite. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure to do so, as I cover a lot of armored games and other tactical FPS stuff. And so your support means a lot. In my previous video, in my experience, Panzer Elite falls more into the arcade side of things with a bit of simulation elements, or so they claim. And like I said previously, there is a spectrum of how the armored games look like. You got arcade side on the left, and then you got simulation more on the right. And so I wouldn't say Panzer Elite is like Gunner Heat PC, where the game Gunner Heat PC falls more in the middle, but more so on the simulation side, since it models the ammo and ballistics and physics, and the missions are more so in the military side of things. So if you were to compare Gunner Heat PC to Panzer Elite, well, you can kind of see what is a true attempt of a sim-lite. But in my own opinion, I think GHPC falls more into the simulation side of the spectrum, but of course not a full simulator. A good example of a non-tank game would be Nuclear Option. I think that game is a good middle ground sim-lite that isn't like DCS, but more so accessible and yet realistic in terms of its physics and flight module. So going back to Panzer Elite, it does fall more into the left side of things, which is more on the arcade style. And so after reading some of the comments from my previous video and looking at other content creators who have played it, a lot of the viewers have pointed out and are quick to judge that it does look no different than War Thunder or World of Tanks. And so for many, it's already a write-off. And of course, not everyone's opinion is going to be the same, but impressions do matter, unfortunately. I'm not saying the game isn't fun. In fact, I had a lot of fun with my community playing this. It's a nice game that you're able to sit back and relax without planning or prep, but I'll explain more on the strengths later on. But my concern is that the game has put itself in a position where you can't really compete, and there are many reasons for that. First, you can't really compete with the giants of War Thunder and World of Tanks. They each have their own large player base. They're both PvP focused, regardless of what you think of those two games, but they're pretty much own the market in terms of the arcade style games. And sure, you might say that War Thunder has better models of ballistics and stuff like that, but I'm talking about the gameplay itself. And because of the current state of Panzer Elite and where it lies on the spectrum of the tank games, the reality is that you can't really compete, nor do I think they're going to really be competing, but unfortunately, because of where you're placed at, it is where it is. And of course, this is in early access, and I know things can change over time, and I do hope it changes, which is why I'm making this video. And I hope that devs from, not just from Panzer Elite, but from different games would also understand the player base. And I think a lot of players, and this is from my time in YouTube and playing these games, is that players are actually hungry to see more gritty and grounded experience of tank games. And so what I'm saying is that we actually need more tank games that fall in the simulation, or at least the middle ground of that. And unfortunately, it's not like the FPS games where there's so many games in different spectrums and genres. For tanks, we don't have a lot. Usually the first game that people think of in terms of tanks and armor games is War Thunder and World of Tanks. And sadly, I don't think there's a lot of tank games that are more so on the hardcore tactical side of things or simulation. There's only a few, like, of course, like Gunner Heat PC, which is still in development. We got Steel Armor, even though it's outdated and single player only. And there's IL-2 Sturmovik tank DLC, but not a lot of people play that. And of course, there's Aces in Armor, which is still in development, but that's a project to look forward to in the future. And of course, there's Steel Beast, which I still play. So in short, the more tank games, the better, and I think we need more grounded and more simulation, or at least a well-defined sim-lite experience. And so going back to Panzer Elite, the game itself has a pretty good campaign and missions, but of course, I think they can do better in the sim-lite experience aspect. And I think this is where they missed the opportunity, which is having multi-crew experience. Even if they don't model the interiors, I think having multi-crew would be a dream for many players. And I think a lot of players want that isn't PvP, that isn't squad or hell let loose. And it's unfortunate that this is a missed opportunity to bring new players in. I think this applies to all tank games in the present and future. And so what I'm saying is that Panzer Elite, if they want to see better success in the future, is to not be afraid of taking the more gritty and grounded approach. I know they're intentionally not competing with the two giants, but because of where your game is at right now, the game should focus on its strengths, which is that single player and co-op experience. Like having more missions, having more armored stories that are told in the game, maybe even having bigger maps, since most of the times we're having more close knife fights, but I'm not sure if that's a limitation of their engine or whatever. But in my honest opinion, I think Panzer Elite should focus on the PvE experience and make that better, because if anything, I can see Panzer Elite standing out because of its cool missions and storytelling, which is something that the two other giants don't really have. Otherwise, Panzer Elite will be a missed opportunity to stand out from the rest, and that's just my opinion on that. And personal for me, I don't really see how they'll change it overnight. But what I'm saying is it's probably important to look at what people are looking for and really understanding the whole genre of tank games. And of course, it's still in early access, so things could change, but time will tell. And like I said before, if they just keep focusing on the strengths of the campaign, storytelling, and the co-op, which is what my community have enjoyed, even though we play a little bit more hardcore tank games like Steel Beast, from time to time, we do appreciate more of the chill experience of tank games. And speaking of some of the updates, I do want to highlight some of the notable changes here. Aside from the usual bug fixes, it looks like they're going to be adding the historical gun sights for both the US and German tanks. But yeah, the decision not to do it in the beginning is a little bit weird. But I'm glad that, or at least it looks like they're going to be adding the accurate tank sights. Another important change should be the penetration values, which they've adjusted it. There were times when a Sherman should have died after a few hits, but they just kept going, and so hopefully that changes from this update. But I'm glad to see that they're adjusting and doing all that. Another thing that we need to mention is the roadmap, and it looks like it runs from 2025 all the way up to spring of 2026. And from the left, looks like we're getting new skirmish maps, and then followed by features like checkpoints, co-op revive, and realistic scopes. There's also other improvements as well. And then we'll get more newer missions and also new features like visible crew, ping system, realism UI, and other improvements. And it looks like they're going to be implementing regular updates such as bug fixes and other minor issues. And like I said before in the video, it'd be nice to see them focus more on the co-op experience, if anything, if what I said won't be implemented or anything like that. From what I can tell, this is more like a short-term roadmap, so we'll see how things will go. But at least we have a general sense of the direction of the game and all that. But this is just my opinions and thoughts of Panzer Elite, and maybe it's a missed opportunity to perhaps fill in the market. I haven't done an opinion piece video in a while now with the state of things, but I think Call to Arms Panzer Elite has got me thinking, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, whether you guys agree or disagree. And if you disagree, it's okay. Obviously do it out of respect. If you have something to add, feel free to add it in the comments below. But I think we can all agree that we need more tank games, especially on the simulation and grounded side of things. And once again, I'm Fan Fantasy, and I cover tactical and immersive games. And if you guys like this video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll see you guys in my next video or stream.